Okay, so another aspect of Sri Chinmoy's path is physical fitness, you could say. Also, creativity, there's art, there's music. But in terms of physical fitness, I was a gymnast in high school. I didn't like to run or jog in general because you needed the spring in your legs for gymnastics. And so when I came to the path, I wasn't doing so much gymnastics, but people were starting to jog, and Guru had been a runner in his ashram growing up. So I tried to run a mile, and it was hard. And then, as time goes on, you start to experience we'll say, the experience of self-transcendence, which is another important aspect of Sri Chinmoy's path. And basically, self-transcendence is, you could say, an aspect of evolution. You're evolving, you're growing, you're learning, and so you're gaining in experience, and you're gaining in your achievements, we'll say, whether it's music or dance or education. In this case, I'm talking about running. So I had to try to transcend 1 mile in my running, and I was living with some other disciples. We were in college still, and so they took me out for a 1 mile run, and they showed me the half-mile point, and they said, well, we're going to keep going. I said, well, no, let me turn back. So I did a mile, and then they did 3 miles or something, and I said, wow, that's amazing. And so I was doing 3 miles like once a month. It was my long run. And so Sri Chinmoy's self-transcendence is something that, kind of never ends in a way. There's a dog over there. He's a really cute dog. And so, I ended up getting involved in, longer distances, half marathon. Then I did New York City Marathon in 1977. And then I just said, I remember after that first marathon, the next day I could hardly move. And I was so stiff and sore. I said, I'm never going to do another marathon. But Sri Chinmoy has different ideas about self-transcendence. You can't quit. Basically, so you live each day at a time. Your body heals, then you feel the energy or the need, the aspiration to improve yourself. And so I started training for more marathons, and then Sri Chinmoy in 1977 said, 1978 said, we'll have a 47-mile race. And it was for his birthday. He was turning 47. So I was like, I did a marathon, I have to do 21 more miles. And your mind limits you so much. But transcendence really comes with transcending the mind, the limits of what you think, of the thoughts and the fears, not so much just physical, So I tried it, and I finished 47 miles. And I said, oh my God. And then time went on, over the years I got into 24-hour races and multi-day races. And then I never wanted to do more than 24 hours. For a number of years I was doing 24 hours, 12 hours, 6-hour races. And then in 1990, Sri Chinmoy saw that I could do more. But I had fear of more than 24 hours. And he told me, please train for next year, 1991, for the 1,000-mile race. And I'd never done more than 24 hours. And I thought, well, he's my guru. I have faith in him, My mind is like freaked out. It's like, how can I do that? But he sees reality, his vision is very deep. So I said, okay, let me try it at least. If I fail, I fail, But so I trained, and I had some problems in the winter with my back, and I had to stop training, and then I was training again. And long story short, I did the 1,000-mile race. It was the hardest thing I had ever done in my life. You had to finish in under 15 days, maximum 15 days. And I finished, and I was a wreck. But I don't want to extrapolate too much, but or get too involved. But that gave me really a lot more confidence in myself, in that not only faith in Sri Chinmoy, seeing that I could do it when I didn't even think I could do it, but also that I can transcend more than I think I can on, we'll say, on the running level. Because I was still quite young. I was 38 years old or something, 39. And so then that led to some more multi-day races. And then in 2003, Sri Chinmoy said, I went up to get prasad, you know, kind of where he gives out food. And he had me sit down and he said, I feel you can do the 3,100 mile race. And then immediately he said, is your mind the problem? In a nice way. He was asking me, but he was telling me, you know, is your mind the problem? And of course I said, yes, Guru, because I used to go to that race and help every year. And I knew how hard it was. I knew how hard the 1,000-mile race was. But when you use your mind says, well, that's 1,000 miles. Then you have to do another 1,000 miles. Then you have to do another one, and then 100 more miles after that. And so the mind really is a problem, you know, when you don't see what your capacity is. But when you have a guru like Sri Chinmoy, you know, outwardly he's, you know, he was able to tell us back then. But now you have to get it inwardly, you know, obviously. And most of our communications with Guru were inner. Like that first time with the motorcycle, Guru didn't tell me physically to chant Supreme or to check my tire. It was inner, even from the beginning. But those of us who saw Sri Chinmoy when he was alive, every once in a while he would give us a little gift by telling us something good or bad about ourselves. And so, and then, so he asked me, he wanted to give me faith in myself, basically. And so, because he had faith in me, which was an honor, you know. And back then we also didn't want to think of Guru not being here on the planet, you know, physically. We didn't want to think of Guru's, you know, passing back then, and you couldn't imagine it. But then, as time went on, you saw that, you know, Guru was getting sick and his time was passing. But then, at that point, you have to strengthen your inner connection with Guru, because the real Guru is the inner Guru. And any new disciples who haven't seen Guru physically, but you see him in videos, which is nice. I really say respect them a lot, because they have to feel Guru spiritually. They have to connect, and there's a little advantage of knowing Guru outwardly, but there's also challenges. You take Guru for granted when he's in the physical. So anyway, it helped me. I did the race, and I finished. And again, it was Guru. I felt like I didn't even do it because it was Guru that told me to do it. I wanted to quit after 12 days. I had shin splints and I could hardly walk. I couldn't run, but I could walk. And Guru told me, stay in the race. Don't worry about your miles. Be happy. And so another aspect of his philosophy is to be happy. To get happiness, not necessarily from the outer world, but from your inner, because my outer world was like pain back then when I was, you know, trying to keep going with shin splints. But my inner world was happiness, because I was there, I was doing what he wanted to. So I forced myself. I mean, it was absolutely necessary to get more inner happiness, because the outer happiness was very hard to get at that point. And so I sang more, I listened to Guru's music more, I chanted, I cried, you know, and I finished the race. And then and it turns out, this is just a little fact. I finished on the 52nd day, which was the last day. I turned 52 during the race, and I was born in 1952, so 52 was a good number that year. And I became the first person over 50 to ever finish the race. And only the second American to male Actually, there's only 3 American males that have finished the race, and it was another guy who won. He wasn't a disciple, but his name was, I forget his name, but anyway, he finished, and I finished, and then just last year, Alex from Ohio finished the race. He was, it was like 20-something years after I had done it, another American had done it. So that race is very unique, and I could talk forever about that race, but again, that was another blessing from Sri Chinmoy. That was quite a difficult challenge, but it helped my spiritual life, it helped my faith in Guru, my connection with Guru. And so all the inner and outer challenges that you take, if you have faith, whether you succeed the way you think you should or not, you make a lot of spiritual progress.